CBS takes you to the All-Star Game. This is Mel Allen greeting you from the tradition-packed confines of Sportsman Park in St. Louis, Missouri, where thousands of shirt-sleeved spectators come to watch the 8th annual unfolding of a midsummer day's dream, baseball's Major League All-Star Classic. A scorching Missouri sun burning down from clear skies dotted with tufts of floating white clouds provides old-fashioned baseball weather for the day's festivities, which passes in review the bulk of American and National League stars. It'll be the pleasure of your broadcaster and Frank Locke, who daily describes the fortunes of the St. Louis Browns and St. Louis Cardinals over Columbia Station KMOX here in St. Louis, to bring you a word's-eye picture of this star's flash spectacle. Up until this moment, there's been much speculation as to the nature of the starting lineup. And up to this moment, the lineup is still in somewhat the tentative stage. But from our pregame bench-warming activities, here's the way it shapes up at the moment. Frank Locke.
Thank you, Mo. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Manager Joe Cronin of the visiting American League team is expected to start Red Ruffing on the mound and follow him up with Buck Newsom and close with either Bob Feller or Al Milnar. And behind Ruffing, we'll find Cecil Travis of the Washington Senators at third base, who has a batting average for the season of .355. Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox in left field, who's been batting .344 so far for the campaign. Charlie Keller of the New York Yankees will lead off in right field, and he's hitting exactly .303. Joe DiMaggio of the Yankees hits in the cleanup spot and will be in center field with a batting average at the present time of .305. Jimmy Fox of the Boston Red Sox will be at first base, and he's hitting .306. Bill Dickey of the Yankees will start off behind the plate. His batting average has dropped down to .220 so far for the current campaign. Luke Appling of the Chicago White Sox will be at short, and he's batting .347 for the season. And Joe Gordon of the Yanks hitting .250 at second. Ruffing's pitching record for the 1940 season reached 7 victories and 6 defeats. Ken Keltner will serve as Travis's relief at third. Bob Johnson as Williams' relief in left field. Roger Kramer of Boston will stand by for DiMaggio in center. Lou Finney will do likewise for Keller in right. George McQuinn of the Browns will be ready to step in for Jimmy Fox at first. Raleigh Hemsley of the Indians and Frankie Hayes of the Athletics will be ready to alternate with Dickey behind the plate. And Lou Boudreau of Cleveland will be ready for action at short, and Ray Mack will be set to relieve Joe Gordon at second. Newsom, Feller, Milnar, Tommy Bridges of Detroit, Emil Leonard of the Senators, and Monty Pearson of the Yankees will be ready for relief mound duty. Manager Bill McKechnie, we just noticed down here that Charlie Ruffing is definitely the starter for this afternoon's game. He's starting to warm up now for the Yanks, and Paul Derringer is warming up for the National Leaguers, so that makes it definite on the two starting pitchers. Bill McKechnie, as we told you, will probably lead off with Archie Vaughn of the Pirates, who is hitting .268 for the year at short. Billy Herman of the Cubs at second, who's batting .308. At first, it was announced that Mel Out of the Giants would be in right field, but we've later been informed that Mac West of the Boston Bees will be in right, and both men are hitting exactly .288. Johnny Mize of the Cardinals, who has a batting mark of .279 so far for the campaign, at first base. Ernie Lombardi of the Reds batting .308 behind the plate. Joe Medwick of Brooklyn in left field with his .303 batting mark. Harry Lavagetto of Brooklyn at third batting .273, and Terry Moore of the Cardinals in center with his .265 average. And as we told you, Paul Derringer will draw the starting knot on the mound with his 10 victories and 7 defeats. Manager McKechnie has for relief Eddie Miller of Boston and Leo DeRocher of Brooklyn at short. Pete Coscarard of Brooklyn at second. Frank McCormick of the Reds at first. Mel Ott of the Giants in right. Harry Danning of New York and Babe Phelps of Brooklyn can capably fill in for Lombardi. Bill Nicholson of the Cubs will be ready to replace Medwick in left field. Merrill May of the Phillies awaits the word go at third base. And Joe Moore will be waiting for an outfield release job. McKechnie will have such mound stars as Carl Hubble of the Giants, Larry French of the Cubs, Kirby Higbee and Hugh Mulcahy of the Phils, Bucky Walters of the Reds, and Whitlow Wyatt of the Dodgers to call on when the going gets tough. And it no doubt will be on both sides this afternoon. Only about 4 percentage points separate the batting averages of the two teams, with the American Leaguers holding that small advantage. As in other years, the two teams are evenly matched, and the break should again prove to be the determining factor when the last man is retired in the 8th renewal of this All-Star Classic. Tom Daly of Boston and Del Baker of Detroit have been selected by Cronin as coaches to the American League, while manager McKechnie has chosen Doc Prothro of the Phillies and Casey Stengel of the Bees as his aides. 7 members of the Yankees have been named to the American League squad, while only 1 player represents the Browns and the White Sox. Fred Rolfe of the Yankees had to withdraw from the American League squad because of illness, as did Hank Lieber of the National Leaguers. Billy Jurgis of the National Leaguers was also unable to accept a National League invitation because of injury. The four umpires who have been named to work today's game by Commissioner Landis are Steve Basel and George Pipgrass of the American League staff, and Beans Reardon and Bill Stewart of the National League staff. And now, once again, Mel Allen.
And now let's take a brief look at this game, its history, and the spot where it's to be played this afternoon, Sportsman Park in St. Louis. And by the way, most of you already know that next year it'll be in Detroit. And incidentally, in Detroit this afternoon, Waldo Briggs, owner of the Detroit Tigers, is having a group of people as his guests at Briggs Stadium listening to our broadcast. Well, back in 1933, Arch Ward, sports editor of the Chicago Tribune, gave birth to the idea of the All-Star Game, chiefly as an added attraction to the Chicago World's Fair that year. But since then, this game has developed into what veteran observers like to term a grudge battle between the two leagues, a battle right down to the finish, wherein each team representing its league strives to uphold its looped reputation in true World Series fashion. It's become rich in tradition, and justly so. The players representing the National and American leagues represent more than approximately $3 million worth of baseball humanity, where a financial price tag placed on their services. The cream of the two crops are here. Sportsman's Park, you know, has been the home of both the Cardinals and the Browns since 1920. This St. Louis baseball orchard was first laid out in 1866, 74 years ago, and no other major league field goes back that far in continuity of location. Few persons are living who remembered the original park in 1866 with its crude pine fence, wooden stands, and plank seats. Few remember when this park housed a shooting gallery to help defray the upkeep expenses, or when the seating capacity numbered 800, providing the fans were jammed against each other. Yes, that's a far cry from this spacious enclosure, which this afternoon will hold some 34,000 screaming fans. Few people remember when the famous Chris Von der A paid Charlie Comiskey, a robust first baseman from Dubuque, Iowa, who later became one of the American League's greatest characters, $50 a month to play for and manage the St. Louis Browns. Well, the park received its name from a young sports writer by the name of Al Spink, an uncle of J.G. Taylor Spink, publisher of the Sporting News, the National Baseball Weekly, and looked upon as baseball's Bible. After years of bad going, Sportsman's Park bounced back as a baseball mecca in 1902 when the American League, coming into its own as a major league organization, placed a franchise in St. Louis. The late Bob Hedges was the chief backer of the club, which carried on under the name of the Browns. He remodeled the park for the 1909 season by placing concrete and steel stands. And then in 1922, when the Browns came too near winning that pennant, the late Phil Ball laid away the profits from the biggest season the Browns have enjoyed, and in 1925 and 26 spent more than $300,000 double-decking the grandstand and extending it down the right and left field line. This gives the park its present capacity of slightly less than 34,000 seats. All of his life, Phil Ball had cherished the ambition of bringing St. Louis an American League pennant, but he passed on in 1933 without realizing this goal. But by a stroke of irony, after Ball had put all his money into the park improvements, the Cardinals stepped out and won a pennant in the World Series. Since then, the Cards have hit the jackpot in 28, 30, 31, and 34, but the Browns are still pennantless. They came close but once, and that was in 1922, when the late Urban Shocker, the great George Sisler, Johnny Tobin, Hank Severidge, David Al Jacobson, and other stars of that year carried the Browns to within a game or so of the Yankees, who were just beginning their pennant-winning siege. The home plate, they tell me, was originally in the southeast corner, but was swung around to the northwest corner a short time later, and in 1909 was placed in its present location in the southwest corner of the enclosure. Recent improvements at the park include a $35,000 scoreboard out in left center field, extending high above the bleachers, one of the finest in either league, and the $150,000 lighting system for night ball, which won't be needed this afternoon. And today, both clubs rent the park from the Ball Estate and share its upkeep. This park is a haven for left-handed hitters because of the short right field screen, which measures only 310 feet from home plate. It's 422 feet to the center field bleachers, 351 feet to left field. The furthest point a ball can go inside the park is 426 feet, and that's a remote corner just to the left of the flagpole in center field. Well, of the 7 games that have been played, this is the 8th annual All-Star Game. The American Leaguers have won 5, with the other 2 decisions going to the senior loopers. Slightly less than 50,000 fans watched the American League score a 4-2 triumph in the inaugural game in Chicago in 1933, with the veterans Connie Mack and the late John McGraw managing the respective clubs. Lefty Gomez received credit for the first of his 3 All-Star Game victories. Today, Lefty is missing. And Babe Ruth called his shots that year, you remember, as he pulled out that busty home run wallop, much to the disgust of the National League fans. Well, Carl Hubble took over the spotlight in 1934 at the Polo Grounds in New York City, even though the American Leaguers again won, this time 9-7. You remember that. Hubble started for the National Leaguers, and after the first 2 men had reached first base, King Carl retired Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox in succession on strike, and then in the second inning, he whipped Al Simmons and Joe Cronin, the first 2 men to face him. giving the famed butterfly ball artist the honor of fanning in succession 5 of the game's mightiest sluggers. Came 1935, and the All-Stars trooped to Cleveland, when in Cleveland's huge municipal stadium, they played before the largest crowd yet to view one of these contests. 69,812 paid to watch the American League win again, 4-1 this time. Frankie Frisch piloted the National League entry, and Mickey Cochran was the American League manager. The two pilots had faced each other in the World Series of 1934, and inasmuch as Frisch and the Cardinals beat Detroit in that October series, American League fans felt that Cochran had redeemed himself by giving the junior leaguers a win in the All-Star Clash. The National League gained its first win in 1936 in Boston, and Dizzy Dean got credit for the victory. The smallest crowd in the history of this game, 25,556, attended the ball game. Charlie Grimm, then of the Chicago Cubs, managed the National League, and the Yankees' Joe McCarthy made his debut as the manager of the American League All-Stars. The Senior League Stars gained their first decision by 4-3 margin. The game went to Washington in 1937, and for the first time, it was a runaway for the American League as they won 8-3, despite the great defensive play of Joe Medwick, who will be performing out here for the 7th time for the National League this afternoon. Here's the Star Spangled Banner. That game was featured by a line drive off the bat of Earl Averill, which caught Dizzy Dean on the pole, and according to Diz himself, led to his eventual downfall. And while we're mentioning the older of the Dean brothers, it might be well to point out in the same breath that tomorrow night he'll appear in another All-Star game, but this time in the Texas League, the loop from which he graduated to the big league. The 1938 Classic was held in Cincinnati, and the National League scored its second win, 4-1. No hit, no run. Johnny Vandermeer was the National League's winning pitcher, and Lefty Gomez was charged for the loss, his only setback in All-Star game competition. Like Dean, Vandermeer is now back in the minors trying to work his way back into the big show. Well, the second largest crowd in the history of the game, 62,892, sat in New York's huge Yankee Stadium last year and watched the American League win again 3-1 when young Bob Feller was called in to relieve the tiring Tommy Bridges, tossed a double play ball, and the game was over right then and there in the hands of the American League. A brilliant bit of pitching by Bob Feller. Now, what today will bring, well, we don't know. The breaks are due to be the deciding factor, just as they've been in the past. And now, just before we give you the official starting lineup, let's pause quickly for station identification. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This is the WBBM Air Theater, Wrigley Building, Chicago.
Official starting lineups. The ball game's going to get underway in a very few minutes. We're going to turn you back to Franz Lotz, who'll give you the official lineup, and we'll carry on and describe the first inning for you. From then on, he and I will alternate innings to bring you the play-by-play description of the 8th annual All-Star Game.
For the American League, the official lineup shows Travis, third base, Williams, left field, Keller, right field, DiMaggio, center field, Fox, first base, Appling, short, Dickey, catch, Gordon, second base, with Charlie Red Ruffing on the firing line for the American Leaguers. The National Leaguers will line up as follows. Archie Vaughan at short, Herman, second base, West, right field, Myers, first base, Lombardi catch, Medwick left field, Lavagetto, third base, Harry Moore, center field, and Paul Derringer will be the starting pitcher. The umpires and the two managers, along with their coaches, are out there now for their little pregame conference at home plate, discussing ground rules, regulations, and what have you before we're ready to go with this 8th annual All-Star Game. The umpires will line up as follows. Beans Reardon of the National League will be calling balls and strikes. At first base will be Pipgrass of the American League. At second base, Stewart of the National League. Third base, Basel of the American League. And after 4 1/2 innings, then the umpires will change. Working 4 umpires, 1 at each base, and starting off with a National League umpire behind the plate. And we don't want to forget also that next year this All-Star Game is going to be held over in Detroit, the home of the Detroit Tigers. That'll be 2 years in a row for it to be in the West, which is something unusual in the way of All-Star Games, but there's only a couple cities left in the American League that haven't had the benefit of having the All-Star Game, the other city being Philadelphia. And of course, Boston hasn't had it as an American League attraction, but the All-Star Game was played in Boston in 1936 at the home of the Boston Bees. Still having their powwow down here at the plate pertaining to these ground rules. Of course, when you've got an interleague series like this, one team will have local rules here, like the Browns rules covering one thing, where for the Cardinals in the other league, it might be just the opposite. So naturally, it'll take a little more time in the discussion of the ground rules pertaining to this game this afternoon. Derringer has finished up his warm-up affair, but Charlie Ruffing of the New York Yankees, who's going to start for the American Leaguers, is still warming up with Mo Berg of the Boston Red Sox. Incidentally, though, we were mentioning the ground rules and so forth. Every player in both of the American and National Leagues is very familiar with Sportsman's Park because it is the home of both the Browns and the Cardinals, so all of the Major League games played in St. Louis are played in this ballpark. On the PA system now, they're calling off the numbers that the different players have on their back. You know, the American League, each player will be wearing his own road uniform, and in the National League, each player has his own home uniform. So we're liable to have 2 or 3 number 8s, 2 or 3 number 5s, and 2 or 3 number 3s. Of course, that's going to be the job of Mel Allen and I to try to keep these numbers straight and be able to distinguish just who is wearing these different numbers. So it's a job of merely studying these men by form and so forth so that you're able to recognize who they are at a glance. Of course, where we're parked here in the upper deck in the temporary press, we have a very good view of the playing field. The National Leaguers are going out on the field now to take their playing position, so in just a few moments, this ball game is going to be ready to start. We're going to run over the way they're out on the field for you again on the National Leaguers. Going around the infield, there is Harry Lavagetto, Cookie Lavagetto of the Brooklyn Dodgers at third, Archie Vaughan of the Pittsburgh Pirates at short, Billy Herman of the Chicago Cubs at second, Johnny Mize of the St. Louis Cardinals at first base, Ernie Lombardi in back of the plate, and Paul Derringer on the firing line. In the outfield, it's Joe Medwick in left of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Terry Moore of the St. Louis Cardinals in center field, and Max West of the Boston Bees out in right field. So we're just about ready to go. Paul Derringer is taking his warm-up pitches, and Cecil Travis strolls out to the plate. He'll be the first man up for the American Leaguers, the Washington Senators' third baseman, and he's sporting a batting average at the present time of .335. He'll be followed by Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox and Charlie Keller. Of course, you're going to have some partisan fans here. Whenever some of the local idols are called off, you get a big hand, and naturally some of the others will get just the reverse, which is to be expected in every ballpark. We're all set to go. The throw has been made down to second base. Cecil Travis steps into the batter's box. Paul Derringer's on the mound, getting his signal from Lombardi. Goes into his windup for the initial pitch. Here is the first pitch, and it's a fly ball. Going out to center field, deep center. Terry Moore moves back. He's under it, and he takes it about 10 feet in from the sign that says 405 feet. Travis out on the first pitch on a high fly to deep center, which is taken care of by Terry Moore. So it's one down. And that brings up Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox, left fielder. And Williams has a batting average so far this campaign of .344, which is not bad in anyone's league. He bats left-handed. Charlie Keller of the New York Yankees on deck. Tom Daly is coaching on the first baseline for the American Leaguers with Del Baker, manager of the Detroit Tigers, coaching at third. Derringer looks around at the outfield for the moment, steps in on the mound. He got his signal from Ernie Lombardi. Goes into his windup, one away. Here's the first pitch, low, ball one on Ted Williams. Ted is a tall, lanky boy, but he can really hit that onion. 1 ball is the count. With 1 man down, Derringer starts his windup for the next pitch to Williams. Ball 2, the pitch was inside. 2 balls and no strikes. 2 balls and no strikes. Ted Williams, the batter, with 1 away. Cecil Travis, the first man up for the American Leaguers, was out on a long fly out to center field. Derringer's winding up for his next pitch. Here it comes, and it's another high one. Ball 3. 3-0 on Ted Williams. Got Derringer in the hole now. 3 balls, no strikes, 1 man down, nobody on. The first half of the first inning of this all-star game. He's winding up, and here's the next pitch to Williams. Strike 1 called. 3 balls and 1 strike. Looks like that one cut across the plate just about knee-high. 3-1. He might pick on this one if it happens to be a cripple. He's into his windup. Here's the next pitch, low and inside for ball 4, and Williams is the first man to reach first base in the 1940 All-Star game by way of a base on ball. Charlie Keller of the New York Yankees, the next batter, playing right field for the American Leaguers. Batting average 303. 1 away. Keller batting. Williams on first base. Derringer's into his stretch. Here's the pitch, and it's strike 1. He swung at it. 1 strike on Charlie Keller. Joe DiMaggio on deck. 2 Yankees in a row here. Keller batting at the moment. DiMaggio on deck. 1 strike is the count on Keller. Up goes the arm again. He glances over at first base. Here's the next pitch. Strike 2. Fast one on the inside corner. Call strike. They count 2 strikes on Charlie Keller, and he steps back out of the batter's box for the moment to get a little dirt on his hands. Back in, taking his stance at the plate. Derringer's on the mound, waiting for his signal from Lombardi. Goes into his stretch. Takes his glance over at first base. Here's the pitch, and it's strike 3. Keller went down swinging for the second out. Keller was out on 3 straight pitches, and that brings up Joe DiMaggio, the Yankees' sensational center fielder. Bats right-handed. Batting average at the present time for the 1940 campaign, 305. DiMaggio batting with Ted Williams still on first base, 2 down. Derringer's in on the mound. Here's the first pitch. Strike 1 called on DiMaggio. That's 4 straight strikes that Derringer has dished up since walking Ted Williams. 3 in a row to Charlie Keller, and the first one here to DiMaggio. He's in on the mound. Here's the next pitch. Ball wide, 1-1. 1 ball and 1 strike. Williams on first base, 2 down the first half of the first inning. This is the 8th annual All-Star game. He's into his stretch once again. Here's the next pitch. Foul ball. Going back against the net. In back of the plate. The count is 2 strikes and 1 ball on Joe DiMaggio. A new ball goes into the game. Lombardi fires it down to Cookie Lavagetto at third, who rubs it up a little. Tosses it into Derringer. Derringer strolls back to the mound. Getting his position from his signal now from Lombardi. Into his stretch. Looks over at first base. Here's the next pitch and a high bounder. Going back out to the mound. One of those kinds takes a long time to come down. Derringer fields the ball. He's out at first base on a close play. DiMaggio was out. He hit a high bounder in front of the plate. Derringer had to step back a little from the mound, but it was one of those kind that you can't do anything about. DiMaggio is racing down to first. Derringer is waiting for the ball to come down, but it did manage to come down in time for Derringer to make the fast throw to first base to retire DiMaggio for the 3rd out to retire the side. So the results there in the first half of the first inning show no runs, no hits, no errors. 1 man left on base. That was Ted Williams, the second man up for the American Leaguers, who walked. So we're going into the last half of the first inning with the National Leaguers getting their first chance at the plate, and Archie Vaughan will be the first batter. The Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop, he bats left-handed, has an average of .268. Buck Newsom going down to the bullpen. And Hank Greenberg is also strolling down there. I believe Mo Berg is going down, so that means that Newsom is just parking down there to get ready to warm up, because we've been informed that Newsom will be the second pitcher in for the American Leaguers after Charlie Ruffing has worked his 3 innings. There's Dickey's throw down to Gordon at second base. He tosses the ball to Appling, back into Ruffing. We're all set to go here in the last half of the first inning. Archie Vaughn, the first batter. Casey Stengel coaching at first base for the National Leaguers. Doc Protho, manager of the Phillies, coaching at third. Casey Stengel, manager of the Boston Bees, at first. Archie Vaughn, the batter. He'll be followed by Billy Herman of the Chicago Cubs and Max West of the Boston Bees. Ruffing gets his signal from Dickey. Goes into his windup for the pitch. Here it comes. And there's a foul ball going into the stands to the left of the plate, the upper tier. And it's one strike. That ball's gone forever. That's a souvenir now. A new ball tossed in. This is the first batter for the National Leaguers in the last half of the first inning. 4 men were up for the American Leaguers in the first half. 1 getting on the result of a walk. Ruffing's into his windup for the next pitch to Vaughn. Here it comes. Ball a little bit wide and low. Even up on Archie Vaughn, 1-1. Dickey steps out in front of the plate, tosses the ball back to Ruffing, who picks up the rosin bag and then strolls in on the mound after rubbing the ball up a little. 1-1 is the count on Archie Vaughn. He has a peculiar stance that they played. Sort of has his right leg, you might say, as a right-handed batter would be stepping back into the bucket. Here's the windup, the pitch, and a ground ball going down to second base. Gordon takes it. It bounces over his head. Gordon, just as he was set to field that one, it tipped his glove. We don't know whether that'll be recorded as a hit or an error. It's one of those. I think it'll be a single. It is a single. A hit for Archie Vaughn. Just as Joe Gordon was set to field that ball, it took a high pound. He managed to tip it with his glove, but couldn't grab it. One is a base hit for Archie Vaughn. He's on first base. Billy Herman of the Chicago Cubs is the batter. He has an average of 308. Second baseman for the National Leaguers. Billy Herman batting. Archie Vaughn on first base. Max West of the Boston Bees on deck. Ruffing's into his stretch, getting set. Here's the pitch. Wide. Ball 1. 1 ball is the count. Billy Herman the batter. The last half of the first inning, this all-star game. Archie Vaughn on first base. Nobody down as yet. Ruffing's into his stretch. Gets his signal from Dickey. Here's the next pitch. Strike call. 1-1. 1 ball and 1 strike. 1-1. Billy Herman batting. Ruffing strolls in on the mound again. Bucky Walters has started to warm up for the National Leaguers down in the left field bullpen. Here's the next pitch. Inside. Ball 2. 2 balls and 1 strike on Billy Herman. 2 balls, 1 strike. Archie Vaughn on first base. Nobody down. And again, Charlie Ruffing is rubbing the gloss off of that new ball. Steps in on the mound to get his signal from Dickey for the next pitch here to Billy Herman. Vaughn is on first base. Nobody out. Here it is. He starts down. There goes a drive going out to left field. A single on a hit-and-run play. Vaughn is racing for third. Here comes the throw. He's safe at third. On a hit-and-run play, Archie Vaughn moves around to third when Billy Herman singles sharply past Cecil Travis at third base. Runners on first and third. Nobody down. That brings up Max West of the Boston Bees, playing right field for the National Leaguers. Batting average .288, and he bats left-handed. The last half of the first inning, Archie Vaughn had started traveling on that one. The hit and run was on. Billy Herman singled past Travis at third. However, it was a close play at third base. Ted Williams fielded the ball and made the throw into Travis in a hurry. Here's the first pitch to West. Strike 1 call. Left-handed batter. 1 strike. Max West batting with runners on first and third. Nobody down in the last half of the first inning. Ruffing's in on the mound, getting his signal. Into his stretch. Glances over at first base. Here's the next one. And there goes a drive. A long one going out to right field. Looks like it might be in there. It's in there for a home run. Max West hit one into the right center field pavilion for a home run. Scoring behind Archie Vaughn and Billy Herman. Max West picked on that pitch for a high one, going out into the right center field stands for a home run, scoring behind Archie Vaughn and Billy Herman to put the National Leaguers off into the front here in the last half of the first inning with a 3-run lead. Johnny Mize, the batter of the St. Louis Cardinals, average .279 so far. That's left-handed. Ruffing winding up. Here's the pitch. High. Ball 1. Looks like Dutch Leonard, the knuckleballer of the Washington Senators, starting to warm up. Or I believe that's Monty Pearson. Here's the next pitch to Mize. Strike 1. He swung at it. Can't tell whether it's Leonard or Pearson.
Both have the same number on the scorecard, but I believe it's Pearson. Here's the next pitch to Mize. Strike two. He took another cut. That's who it is, Monty Pearson of the New York Yankees warming up. He and Leonard are carrying the same numbers. 2 strikes, 1 ball is the count. Johnny Mize batting. Ernie Lombardi on deck. Ruffing winding up. Here's the pitch, and there's a high fly. Going out to center field. DiMaggio coming in fast. Appling going back. Ted Williams coming in, and Williams finally takes it. 3 of them coming in, getting the ball in short left center for the initial out. So it's 1 down, and Ernie Lombardi, the National League's catcher, a member of the Cincinnati Reds, and a batting average of .308 is up. That's right-handed. He'll be followed by Joe Medwick of the Brooklyn Dodgers. 1 down. Nobody on. Ruffing gets his signal from Dickey, goes into his windup. Here's the initial pitch, and there's a drive going out to center field for a hit, and Lombardi is on first base. Lombardi picked on the first pitch for a single to center. And that brings up Joe Medwick of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Joe is getting the big hand. There's a lot of mixed cheering. He's getting both cheers and boos. Joe was a favorite here in St. Louis for a number of years, now a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers. He has an average of .303. Ruffing's in on the mound. Here's the pitch, and it's a foul ball coming back at the plate up against the screen for strike 1. 1 strike on Joe Medwick. With 1 man down, Ernie Lombardi on first base. Fox walked over to say a word to Charlie Ruffing. Back to his position now at first base. New ball was tossed into Ruffing. He's in on the mound. Getting a signal from Dickey. 1 away. Medwick batting. All set. Here's the pitch. Strike called. 2 strikes on Medwick. Medwick didn't seem to like that very much. 2 strikes. Joe Medwick the batter. Cookie Lavagetto on deck. Ruffing comes in on the mound, getting a signal now from Dickey. Into his stretch, all set for the pitch. Here it is. Ball wide. 2 strikes and 1 ball. 2 strikes, 1 ball. The score is 3-0. The National Leaguers putting over 3 runs here so far in the last half of the first inning on 2 singles and a home run by Max West. Ruffing's in on the mound. Here's the next pitch and a foul ball. Coming back up into the press section and bouncing down into the lower tier. That calls for another new ball. The count is still 2 strikes and 1 ball on Joe Medwick. Ernie Lombardi on first base with 1 man down. Mize making the out on a fly ball to left center, which was taken care of by Ted Williams. He's into his stretch. Here's the pitch. Wide ball 2. Count is even up 2-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Medwick batting. Lombardi on first base. Lombardi's single was a line drive to center. Ruffing's in on the mound. He's getting a signal from Dickey. Goes into his stretch. Up goes the arm. He's all set. Here's the pitch, and it's another foul coming back to the plate. Count remains the same, 2-2. Umpire Beans Reardon is dusting the plate. New ball is tossed into Charlie Ruffing, who strolls back to the mound very slowly, rubbing the gloss off the ball. Around now to take the stance, waiting for that signal from Bill Dickey for the next pitch here to Joe Medwick. A right-handed batter. And the count is 2-2. He's into his stretch. Here's the pitch, and there's a foul ball going down the first base line over near the stands. Fox going over, and he makes the catch. A nice catch going over close to the stands for the second out. Medwick fouled out to Jimmy Fox. So it's 2 down with Lombardi on first base, and that brings up Harry Lavagetto. Carries the nickname of Cookie, a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Third baseman, has a batting average so far during the 1940 campaign of .273. That's right-handed. He'll be followed by Terry Moore. Ruffing steps in on the mound to get his signal. Here's the first pitch and a foul ball going into the stands to the right of the plate, the upper deck. And it's 1 strike on Lavagetto. 1 strike, Lavagetto the batter. With 2 down, Lombardi on first base. Ruffing steps in there. Up goes the arm. Fox is playing off first. Here's the pitch. Strike called. 2 strikes on Lavagetto. 2 strikes. Jimmy Fox is playing a few feet off of first base. Ruffing's into his stretch. And here's the next pitch to Lavagetto, wide and low for ball 1. The count is 2 strikes, 1 ball. There's 2 down. Lombardi is on first base. The last half of the first inning The National Leaguers leading by a score of 3-0. Ruffing comes in on the rubber to get his signal from Dickey. 2 strikes, 1 ball. Still have Lombardi on first base. 2 down. All set. Here's the pitch, and there's another foul going into the stands to the right of the plate, into the upper deck. Count remains the same. 2 strikes, 1 ball, another new one tossed in. This is the last half of the first inning. National Leaguers have had 4 hits here so far in the last half of the first. Ruffing's all set. Here's the pitch. High, ball 2, and the count is even up once again. 2-2 on Cookie Lavagetto, a right-handed batter and a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Ernie Lombardi on first base. 2 down. Ruffing's getting his signal. Up goes the arm. He's all set for the pitch. Here it comes. Lombardi starts down. It's a pop fly going down to second base. Joe Gordon moves over. He's under it. And he takes it for the 3rd out, retiring the side. The results there in the last half of the first inning show 3 runs, 4 hits, and no errors.
And so the National League leads 3-0 at the end of the first inning, striking with a vengeance right from the opening gun to atone somewhat for previous defeats by the American League, who hold a 5-2 edge in the 7 games played up until this season, this being the 8th annual All-Star Game. For the American League, coming into the first half of the second inning, Jimmy Fox will lead off. He'll be followed by Luke Appling, and then will come Bill Dickey. The American Leaguers were retired in the first half of the first inning by Paul Derringer, the starting pitcher for the National League, a right-hander. Without giving up a base hit, Ted Williams, the only man to get on first, he drew a base on balls, which is rather odd for Paul Derringer, inasmuch as Derringer is one of the top men in the big leagues for control. The National Leaguers put together 3 hits right in a row. An infield single by Vaughn on a grounder, which hopped high over Joe Gordon's head. A single by Billy Herman with a hit and run on, sending Vaughn to third. And then Max West, the long-distance clouding outfielder for the Boston Bees, hitting one into the center field stands to score Vaughn and Herman ahead of him.